Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted a life filled with more meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, then do we have the Remembering the Light Within show for you. Today I'll be talking with Drs. Mary R. Hulnick and Ron Hulnick, founding faculty of the University of Santa Monica, the Worldwide Center for the Study and Practice of Spiritual Psychology, and the authors of an absolutely beautiful new love song, scratch that beautiful new book, Remembering the Light Within. And that's just what I want to talk with them about today. Discovering our goal line and our soul line. What is soul-centered living? And how do we begin living soul-centered today? That plus we'll talk about fortuitous meetings in New Mexico, the importance of chai lattes, writing in the middle of the night, double rainbows, Koh-i-Noor, certified magicians, Wisconsin cottages and thunderstorms, and what in the world Piglet and gratitude have to do with anything. Gotcha.
Is that all? Is that all we're going to do?
Oh, that's a great introduction, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. So welcome to the show, Ron and Mary. Are you ready to shine?
We are ready.
We're shining.
Woohoo! We didn't even have to go with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Yeah.
So before we dive right into things, Mary, I wonder if you mind sharing, if you mind taking us back in time to you were a little girl when you first began experiencing a sense of spirituality or that there was something more.
Well, it seems like I always had that awareness. I remember being about 3 years old, and my dad was planting some little pine trees on the hillside where we lived. And I had my little bucket and my little shovel, and I was carrying a little bit of water down the hill to water these trees. And on the way, I noticed some little flowers blooming on the hillside. And I was just enraptured by these flowers. They seemed totally luminous to me, just radiating energy and light. And I sat down and just became absorbed in them. And I think that's one of my earliest memories of just being aware that there was so much more going on here in this reality.
Beautiful. And Ron, what were your early experiences?
Well, for me, I came in through a little different door. I found myself always interested in things like psychic phenomena, meaning extraterrestrial beings and extrasensory perception and those kinds of things. And growing up, I always had a propensity for like crawling into little spaces or going out by myself and just being alone and getting very quiet inside. There was just always something about that it was like I knew there was some other reality that I was always attempting to access to. I wouldn't have called it that at that time. But as I look back, that's really what it was. And so I just kind of naturally found my way in, I call it the backdoor approach.
Backdoor meaning you snuck into spirituality.
Well, let's say I was looking for one thing and found something else.
Beautiful. So going back to Mary, we'll go back and forth a few times here. Sure. Sophomore college, you took existential psychology, am I right?
Yes. My sophomore year, I needed one more credit to be eligible for full junior standing. And so I went to two of my professors, women, and talked with them about this. They said, "Oh, you must do a seminar with us in existential psychology." That was an incredible opening for me because at that time I read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I read Rollo May. I read I read Maslow, Abraham Maslow, and others, and I found it totally resonant with something very, very deep inside. And I immersed myself in this study and reading. And when I finished my 30-page paper, which was the requirement, they wrote on it, A+, this is well beyond undergraduate level. And that was an incredible affirmation and gateway for me.
It sounds like that slingshotted you forward. One thing led to another. You're going for your master's. You're going for your PhD. Somewhere along the way, you met John Rogers?
Well, actually, I met John Roger after I completed my doctorate. I worked for 3 years at the University of Idaho, and then I moved to New Mexico, where I began my full-time teaching. And it was about 5 years later when a friend of ours actually made us aware of John Roger, and we began to subscribe to little booklets called Discourses that came once a month and were an opportunity to deepen in our spiritual understanding and awareness.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Ron. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, but the part in between there, I think, is really very interesting, and that is how we met.
Oh, I was going to have to go there. And first off, how did you find your way and your path to New Mexico?
Well, I kind of knew that I wasn't going to continue my lifetime of taking over my father's business, which is what I was being groomed for.
Which was?
He was president of a small chemical company in Brooklyn, New York. And, you know, I mean, it was fine. And I worked there for about 12 years. But I knew that something inside was this wasn't going to be it. But I didn't know what it was. And what I did was I was into skiing. And so I had bought an A-frame up in northern Vermont. And I would go up there skiing every weekend. And then I realized it wasn't Vermont. I mean, it wasn't skiing I was interested in. It was Vermont, because it represented that place away that I could go to. And so I was going there every weekend of the month, no matter what was going on in Vermont. And I pulled away from the company, and then I reached a place where I was kind of like in limbo. And my girlfriend at the time was going out to New Mexico to visit her teacher. And so I went too. She invited me to go, and I went. And New Mexico, wow, UFOs and all kinds of great things. And maybe I'll see one. Maybe I'll be taken up. And so, but what did happen was one of the gentlemen I met there, who was a friend of the teacher, talked about this woman down in Alamogordo, New Mexico in the south, who was a trance channel. And a trance channel, oh my God, was that amazing to me. And so could I meet this person? And he gave me the phone number, and I called up, and sure, come on down. And my girlfriend and I were leaving in a couple of days, so we went down there, and this woman, that experience changed my life, because talking to her was amazing. But then they did this process they called aura balancing. And it was a kind of an energy clearing technique, but more than that, because the guy doing it was just, I would say, I mean, now I understand, he was clairvoyant. And when he just was lifting things off of me. And the more he lifted off, the more I just was being taken deeper and deeper and deeper into a place inside I never knew existed before. And I know now what it was. It's a place of loving. It's that place we all have inside. It's the seat of that light within that is in the book. And that's what really started me. And it wasn't too long before I moved out to New Mexico, and I studied and became an apprentice to this woman for 5 years. And one morning, because she would have her own sessions with her own inner teacher every morning, when I got over there, she said, "You had a message this morning, and they're saying that you need to go back and get your doctorate degree." And I'm going, oh my God, why would I want to do a thing like that? And they said, it's not so much what you will learn, it's that for the work that you will be doing, having that degree will be very helpful for you. So it was on the basis of that I started looking around at schools, and I decided on New Mexico State University down in Las Cruces And I figured a smart thing to do would be to go, before I started the classes, was to see if I could sit in on each of my professors that was going to be, to get an idea of what it was going to be like. So I'd wait there at the start of the class and outside of the classroom and present my story. I'm going to be a student here. Could I just sit in on one of your classes, get a sense of it? So I'm standing there waiting at the doorway, and here comes my teacher, who is this woman named Mary.
Hi, Mary.
And I present my story. Well, Mary gets very flustered and said, "Why would you want to do that?" Because she had an inner sense that I was not just an ordinary person. I hadn't a clue.
Well, I recognized him. There was a kind of recognition. And he repeated his question. By then, I regained my composure, and I said, well, of course, have a seat in the back. And I didn't see him again for a couple of months, and then he showed up in a doctoral seminar that I was teaching. And that's how our story began.
Woohoo!
Yeah, really.
So, if we fast forward from there, how in the world did you end up running a school together?
Well, this happened after we met John Roger, our spiritual teacher, and he said to us, if you ever had a dream of doing a school and doing it the way you always wished it could be, here is an opportunity for you. He had founded an institution about 5 years before, and it had remained an empty shell. The name of it was Kohinoor University. And Kohinoor, Michael, means mountain of light. And it was very interesting when he told us about it. We thought about it. There was no big pull or aha, but maybe about 6 weeks later, we had been in California for almost a month. We returned home, and within a matter of just a couple of days, I had a very profound dream that we were to do the school. I woke up very early in the morning. I was aware of the dream. In New Mexico, all of the backyards are large and they are walled. And I was outside on our patio in our backyard, just reflecting on this dream. And Ron came out and he said, "What are you doing out here?" And I told him about the dream. We went inside, we made coffee, we talked, and we called John Rogers' office to tell him that we wanted to return to California to talk to him. And less than 24 hours later, we were on a plane to LA. But as we were driving to El Paso, which was about 90 miles from our home, in the sky, we saw the most incredible double rainbow. And to us, that was
a good omen.
Yes, definitely a sign of the spiritual promise and confirmation. And probably about 6 months later, we moved to California and began the school.
And we were off to a great start. We had 11 students in the first class. And of course, they were all people who were involved in John Rogers' organization, because those were the only people that we really had access to. And from there, just really took off. And it wasn't long before people were coming from many different places, and most of them not involved with John Rogers' work. And it just took off on its own. And he remained the chancellor for all the rest of the time. And we are so fortunate in that we had access to him whenever we needed to have a meeting with him, which got less and less over the years, but he just was always there for us. And, we told him at the beginning, how will we know if we're doing it according to the way you see it? And he said, well, let me tell you how that works. No news from me is good news. And so as long as you're doing it, that is in harmony with what I'm seeing, you probably won't ever hear from me, but I'm always there to answer questions. And in the entire time, we never heard from him once.
What was the fear level like to say we're going to pack up our lives in Las Cruces and we're going into the great unknown and we're going to run a school, and both of you are have so much school running experience before this, of course.
Yeah, of course, exactly.
Exactly, none. You know, it's so interesting because it was responding to a calling. And so I don't recall there being great fear. There was just a clarity of intention, of purpose. It was very unknown. And moving to LA from New Mexico was probably the most shocking experience of all. I mean, I probably spent the first 2 weeks in the bathroom crying because it seemed like such an inhospitable environment.
Compared to where we came
Yes, the city itself. But we were very blessed by John Rogers' support, by people who believed in us and what it was that we were attempting to do. And gradually over time, it blossomed into something amazing. And we at this point have graduated 5,500 students from 2-year master's degree program, and many of them also completed a 3rd year in consciousness, health, and healing. So we have had a lot of grace and a lot of support inwardly and outwardly.
And this has now been going on we're in our 37th year.
Woohoo!
Really?
Let's go from there. And I want to talk about soul-centered living and about discovering our goal line and our soul line. Maybe a place that we should start is the Michelangelo Effect.
Yes, I saw the angel in the stone and I carved to set him free. You know, it's part of what's so beautiful about the work that we do, that it's designed to assist people in awakening to who they truly are at the soul level, or authentic self level, as we call it. And so our work is really designed to assist people in remembering who they are and removing the barriers that block them from the awareness of their soul essence, of their true nature.
What is spiritual amnesia?
Spiritual amnesia is forgetting who we are. And you know, Michael, it's very rare for someone not to forget. Just taking on a body almost assures that we will forget, because with the body comes the mind and the emotions, comes the ego, and all of this illusion that goes on in physical world reality, where of course we need to function. We need to create lives that work as best as possible for us. But nonetheless, the ego, the small self, loves distraction. It loves comfort, control, security, familiarity. And so it's very happy to remain asleep and distracted.
See, really, there's no reason to leave heaven to go to heaven. There'd be no point to it. What we are involved in, the way that we see it, mm-hmm. It would be like if you wanted to learn about the Galapagos Islands. You could read lots of books about the Galapagos Islands, but it wouldn't be until you actually went there that you would start to really have an understanding of what went on there. And in a very similar way, when we come onto this planet and take physical form, in order to have a physical form to begin with, you have to enter the domain within which the creation can exist in order to work in it. You have to go into the school in order to learn the lessons. Mm-hmm. You can't learn them if you're not in there. In order to go into this school, you have to have amnesia, in a manner of speaking. You have to forget that which you came from. Otherwise, you would just sit there and you would say, oh, gosh, this is going on and that's going on, and wow, look at what's going on over there. Isn't that interesting? And that would be the way that the soul would see it. there would be no value in it unless there was a way for you to actually get in there and experience it. So we could say in a way that Earth is a place where souls come so that they can experience learning. Because you can't just experience something looking at it. You can't understand the emotion, you can't understand anger unless you experience it. And so there has to be a place set up where this dynamic is all going on. Otherwise, we couldn't experience it. So we have to forget to be here. It's not a bad thing. It's just a time-consuming thing.
and a challenging thing, which I guess is an important part of the journey, because if we weren't uncomfortable, then the ego wouldn't kick in and say, you need to eat, you need to get out of the way of the bus. Instead, you'd be like, everything is beautiful, bus.
That's right.
And then you're back in heaven again.
That's
yes,
right.
Exactly, exactly. And the ego is an incredible learning device because it draws us into life, it reacts to things, it shows us where our opportunities, our unresolved issues lie. So the ego is not the enemy. The people that think we need to kill the ego, to me, don't really understand. It's like as we awaken more, we become less identified with the ego, more identified with our essential nature, which is loving and joyful, creative, resourceful, inspirational, all of that. And then we live in that state.
As we awaken, the more we awaken, what happens simply is that still small voice within, that connection to the light, to the loving, it just grows in a person's awareness. And what eventually happens, you keep going, then you become a being for whom loving is your essence. You walk around in a state of loving, but you use the ego to do your work in the world. Believe me, the soul does not know how to send an email message. It's
Finger
your
goes through the keyboard.
Yeah. And so the soul takes its rightful place as the master, and the ego becomes the willing servant. And sometimes not so willing, but nevertheless, that is the direction the whole thing goes. You just become more enlightened, or you remember more. This is why they say you really become very ordinary, because it's you detach from desire. You don't really you realize that nothing you will ever have in this world is going to make you happy. It doesn't work that way. Happiness comes as a direct state of knowing the essence of what you truly are, which is a divine, loving being.
There are so many directions we can go with that, and I want to talk about Teilhard in a minute. And before I do that, you're saying that we become ordinary, we lose some of that attachment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't. Like, you guys started a school. You've taught over 5,500 master's degree students.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean that we don't have callings or goals or even, it's a dangerous word to use, but ambition. It just means that we understand more of who we are in the process.
Exactly. We understand more of who we are, and from our point of view, each person comes not only with what they're here to learn, but they come with their unique gifts, the contribution they can make. And so a part of our work is designed to help people connect more with their soul purpose and with the way in which they feel called to make a meaningful contribution in the world. And to us, that's very, very important. We're here in physical world reality. We're here to learn and grow and awaken. And at the same time, we might as well participate in life and find our unique way that we can be of service.
See, the only thing that really changes is that for most people, they think, gosh, if I win the lottery and I win $10 million, that is going to really make me happy. Now, if you're a person that is awake and you're loving, and you win $10 million, it doesn't make you any happier than you can't be more happy if you're happy. if your current state is fulfillment, no matter what you do here, it's not going to give you more of that, but it is a way that you can share that which you have come into with the rest of the world, should you choose to. Many people simply go off, and I think I could have easily been one of those, and find your cave somewhere and just be very quiet. I know I'm not there because my cave would have to be located near a Starbucks.
I love that. That'd be explain the chai lattes. So I want to get to goal line and soul line. On our way there, you talk about fulfillment, and you said if you have fulfillment, it doesn't matter if we have the $10 million, but I've got like 10 million people behind me going, how in the world do we find fulfillment?
And that's what the University of Santa Monica is all about, and that's what spiritual psychology is all about.
And we've developed a myriad of principles and practices that we share with our students, and ours is a very practical spirituality. It's something that people can apply and utilize every single day of their lives to have better relationships, to create more success in physical world reality while they're waking up more into the awareness. We had a beautiful event last night at the university, and one of the current students shared about how 10 months ago she was unhappy in virtually every area of her life. Her marriage had come undone. She had lost her very successful and lucrative position. She was really at a crossroads, and it's beautiful. She's now divorced and in a new relationship that she is over the moon about. She's discovered that she wants to return to what gave her so much joy as an undergraduate. She studied American Sign Language and loved working with the deaf. She had been involved in the entertainment industry for a number of years. She'd been conditioned that how much money she made was the measure of her worth and value. And she is really clear that is not accurate. She is returning to sign language as her path of service in the world. And this is a woman who is filled with joy and a sense of great meaning and purpose in her life.
Thank you. As we're trying to discover our own meaning and purpose, what is a goal line and then what is a soul line? Because I think it helps if we understand this concept.
Well, the goal line really is physical world reality. It has to do with relationships, with our family, with health, with career, all of the things that go on in physical world reality. The soul line is the dimension of the spiritual context. It's the dimension on which we awaken. We see the goal line as a horizontal line and the soul line as a vertical line. And what happens as we awaken, as we let go of those barriers that block us from the awareness of who we are, then we wake up more into our essential loving nature. And it's this juxtaposition and interplay of the goal line and soul line that is so empowering when people begin to realize I am a divine being having a human experience, and that I can use my human experience in service to my awakening. Life really starts to heat up, to change in a beautiful way.
And this notion of the soul line, you could think of it as the goal line is everything going on out there. Mm-hmm. It's our jobs, our relationships, and it's all referenced out there. And the soul line is everything, it's going on inside of you. It's all experiential that's going on inside of you. And most people mix the two up. And the way that we were conditioned growing up, we came to the understanding that our inner state, what we experience inwardly, is directly the result of what's going on out there in the world. So if something is going on, and we have a reaction inside where I get disturbed, or that makes me angry, and that's the way most people run their lives, then we go looking to try to change what's going on out there. So we can take election results as a good example in recent history. But if you really consider it, the experience that you have is going on inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
You never experience something going on outside. You only have the experience inside. Might it be possible, therefore, to gain access to the place inside where these reactions are happening and work with them directly, independent of anything that's going on outside? Might that be possible? And the big discovery that we made is not only is it possible, but there are very, very, very clear and concise and not very difficult ways that you can work with it inwardly, heal the place inside that has that reaction, and be done with it. So that when that very same thing happens outside, you observe it. You just don't have the reaction. You just see it for what it is, that which has happened. And then you simply decide if you want to do anything about it or not. But you're free to do whatever you do from a place of loving, rather than from a place of fighting. Because the big thing that people don't seem to realize is the more you fight against something you don't like, the more you actually are reinforcing it, because you are adding to the sum total of the negativity that's contained in the thing you don't like. That is just so hard for people to grasp. We weren't brought up that way.
So what is an early exercise we can do when we see something that is affecting our internal landscape and we're going, I realize this is on some level a choice. I have something I can do about this situation. Where do we begin?
I think one of the most easy points of entrance is to assist people in becoming aware when they are judging. And by judging, we mean there is a negative load or a charge on our response to something. We're making somebody or something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or judging it as less than or not okay, including ourselves. And to recognize that when I judge, I am creating and contributing to that horrible pain of separation that we as human beings experience inside ourselves. And that rather than judging, I can learn to look through what we refer to as soul-centered eyes, the eyes of the heart. I can learn to see myself, others, the world, everything that's going on here through the lens of compassion. So part of the work is really cleansing the lens of our own perception. How do we do that? We do that through intention, the intention to see through the eyes of love, to see with the eyes of our heart, but also through learning that it's compassionate self-forgiveness that dissolves the judgments, that dissolves the painful emotions, that restores us really to the awareness of who we are as we awaken.
Beautiful. You talk about, and maybe I should ask, why is self-forgiveness not for sissies?
Well,
It's not for sissies because it means I'm accepting responsibility for what's going on inside of me as opposed to judging other people, making them wrong, blaming them, situations and circumstances for the disturbance. And we are conditioned in this world to focus out there with what's wrong, who did what, and blame them rather than recognizing this is my God-given opportunity. Yes, I'm triggered. Yes, something has surfaced inside of me. But what we have learned personally and what we assist our students in learning is that taking responsibility is the gateway to authentic empowerment and to living a life of greater joy and love.
You know, this is exactly why we do the classes in an experiential format. Let me give you an example. The first night that people will come into a class, and there may be, let's say, 200 people sitting in there, and we divide people up into trios, into three-person processes. Mm-hmm. And we do some very, 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 very simple things. So we'll have them, for example, there's a facilitator, and there's a sharer, and there's a neutral observer. So the task of the sharer, very simply, just share something that is significant to you, something that's meaningful, not about the weather. And a facilitator, all they do is they listen. They practice what we call heart-centered listening, mm-hmm. or they maybe just encourage them just minimally. Oh, that's beautiful. Can you tell me a little more about that? That's really interesting. The neutral observer simply observes. And when this is done, we rotate our seating, and they each change positions, and we have the same thing again in a different position, and then we do it again. So by the time this is over, we may have been in a process for, let's say, 3/4 of an hour by that time. And each person has been in 3 different chairs. So they're all having the experience of the same process from a different perspective.
You're teaching them how to become an infinite observer to the situation.
How to become a neutral observer, yes. And so then, at the end, we say, all right, you've just done your first process. Congratulations. Now, how many people have had the experience? Now, you just sat with somebody who you didn't know before. You've talked about some meaningful things. You've heard about their meaningful things. You've observed 2 people having a conversation about meaningful things. And you've been doing it in a room with some 199 other people. So the energy of all of those people sharing that way is present. How many of you can honestly say that you would say that you have an enhanced sense of intimacy inside yourself and peace than you had before you started? Almost all the hands go up. We say, welcome to the soul line.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And this is why we do these programs experientially, because you now take that same idea and focus it in many different areas, and that happens every time. And people just start having these amazing experiences, and they really let go of things that no longer serve them, that are all that's really in the way of them knowing who they truly are. That's the Michelangelo effect.
Beautiful. You talk about an overarching spiritual intention. Is that what this intention is waking up to who we truly are?
Yes, that would be an overarching spiritual intention, to really know yourself as the presence of love and to be able to live your life more in harmony with that awareness.
What do you say? What do you mean? I love this line. The mind is a tool to be used in service to the heart.
Well, the ego is composed of the mind and the emotions. That is the psychological definition of what an ego is. And they're in harmony. So if you believe something is not good, you're going to have a not good feeling about it. If you believe something is good, you're going to have a happy feeling about it. So those two are in harmony. So we work a lot with the mind, and there's a lot of emphasis these days on mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only going to take you so far, because it doesn't transcend into the authentic self necessarily. Now, if you keep releasing things in your mind, you will start to have more of these experiences of who you are. It just can take you a whole lot of time in order to do that. You can go at it directly by learning how to access that place inside where you reside as the authentic self, and then use that awareness, because that loving energy is what dissolves the what we call unresolved issues, which are all taking place in your mind. There are no unresolved issues in the authentic self. It's just love.
How do we use meditation to get in touch with this?
Well, for people that are established meditators, they probably have their own mantras and ways of focusing. There's a very simple practice that people can do, and that is they can close their eyes, begin to follow the rising and the falling of their breath, to focus your awareness in your heart on your essential nature. And as you breathe in, silently repeat the word love. And as you breathe out and you release that breath, silently repeat the word love. So as you follow the rising and the falling of your breath, focusing your awareness in your heart on your essential loving nature, continue that mantra, love, 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 love. And as you do this, allow yourself to continue relaxing, to experience that energy of love flowing through you into all levels of your consciousness, into every cell in your body. And that energy of loving is transmuting, lifting, clearing, cleansing anything that is no longer needed. And as you breathe in the love and you breathe out the love, know that this is your essential nature. Yes, we are divine beings having a human experience. And as humans, we have a mind, but we are not our mind. We have emotions, but our emotions do not define us. They are not our essential nature. We have a body, but we are more than our body. We are a soul, a loving essence, having and using a human experience in service to remembering the love that we are, and to walk in this world in the awareness of ourselves as an emanation of the divine, to look with soft eyes, the eyes of love, and to recognize, oh, there's another divine being having their unique human experience. Make your intention to live the loving, to awaken more fully into the awareness of love that you are. so be it.
Woohoo! Thank you so much. When people are getting more in touch with who they truly are and getting more in touch with their soul line, there's the carry water, chop woodedness.
Yes.
How do we still discover what is our physical activity to shoot for, our goal while we're here? How do we begin to uncover that?
Well, very often I encourage people to look at the things that they loved as a child. And very often there will be clues there as to their calling. We encourage people to follow the joy, that which brings them alive, that for which they have enthusiasm. Yes, we need to take care of ourselves in physical world reality. We know a gentleman who just retired. He had been working for a Fortune 500 company as an executive for many, many years. His love and passion has been music. And earlier in his life, he was a musician. He played with some bands and so on. And then his career path kind of took over. Since he has retired, a major musician has sought him out, and they are now playing together. And he is doing that which has always given him great joy and love.
He's about to go on tour.
Yes, it's really such a home run for him.
And, very often, like when my mother would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd say a pilot. And she would say, where are you going to pilot? And I would say, well, I don't know yet. And I actually went so far as to take pilot training and obtain a single land rating so I can fly a private plane and have. And so I tried to really follow up on that, but I realized finally that was the analogy that my young mind could use, but what I was really after was soaring.
Yes.
Piloting the soul.
Exactly. But I had no language for that at that time. So the flying thing was the best that I could do. And for many people, they have that inside of themselves, but because they're used to looking at life through the lens of the goal line, they never see it. So if they can start refocusing and learning how to see things more on the soul line, these kinds of awarenesses come to them. But unless they have some kind of a context, this is why we speak of the spiritual context. So many times I have seen people have a spiritual experience that go into it, go out the other side, and never even know that is what they had because they didn't have the context.
Can you expand what you mean by context?
Well, one context is that you're not a human being with a soul. As Mary said before, you're a soul who is here to learn from being here. Not to change the school, but to learn what the school has to offer. If you don't understand that, you will spend most of your life trying to change the school. That's not why you're here. And this is why, and people who are into reincarnation will tell you, we come back many times to learn the same lesson because we're not focused on learning it. We're focused on the demands of the school when we get here. And that is one of the most difficult things, is to consider the possibility that there is something else going on here. Because this place only operates as long as people buy in to what's been called the illusion of it. It's been said that we went into a theater to watch the movie. We got lost in the movie. And now we're living as one of the characters on the screen. So it takes a certain amount of willingness to even consider the possibility that there's another way to look, especially if I dare to look that possibility. I have to take responsibility for all the things going on inside of me, which are obviously someone else's fault.
Clearly. So, few quick.
I mean, that's the ego's paradise. I get to be upset and angry and ugly, but it's okay because I can blame it on somebody else.
Yeah, it's a challenging day when we have to turn the mirror on ourselves.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Which brings up one pertinent note. Then we'll do a few quick wrap up questions. But the importance of the C word.
Commitment.
Yeah.
Yes. This work requires commitment. Awakening is a lifelong process. It's not an event. And it's a wonderful journey. It's a wonderful process of becoming more awake, more aware, of being able to let go of more of the unfinished business, the baggage, to stop identifying with our personal history, the things that happened or didn't happen, and using them somehow of evidence of our unworthiness and our lack. So awakening is lifelong for us. And to us, it's a learning orientation to life. And the other thing that I've discovered for myself is that my capacity to experience my soul essence just simply continues to expand.
You mentioned thank you for sharing on that. You mentioned an interesting word I want to come back to, because it's one that people struggle with, particularly as they feel, I'm not on path, I haven't found my path. You're saying I'm a spiritual being having a human existence, but I don't feel worthy.
Yes, unworthiness is the biggest misidentification that we as human beings hold. And it's like a cloak that we put on. And this work is really designed to assist people in experiencing themselves with that cloak or coat taken off.
See, if you think about it in the context that we're talking about, the instant you move into this context of spiritual psychology, that question will come up. Because if we're saying that the essence, that your very essence, that which you are made of, is love, the question comes up, well, how can there be unworthiness inside of love? Those two things don't go together. And the answer is, you're absolutely right. They don't go together. Which would you rather give up? And so if someone has any sense at all, they're going to say, well, I have to give up this sense of unworthiness if I'm going to accept that love is all that there really is, and that's what I am. There's no unworthiness in that. At that point, you come to the realization, therefore, that whole notion of unworthiness is an illusion, albeit a very real one, and albeit a very deep one, and albeit one that you have really taken in deeply. So a lot of the work that we do, and this is why this process goes on over time, why it's experiential, and why we love doing it in community with a lot of other people, because there's so much of the energy to work with. People have the experience of letting go of the judgment, and all of a sudden they find themselves in this divine place. They would say, I forgive myself for ever buying into the notion that somehow I'm unworthy, as if that were even possible. I just let go of that. Now, some people in that moment, they just have these exalting experiences. Most people in the room do not at that point. But by observing the person who did, and seeing that person in the new place inside, and being touched in their own heart because they're tuning into that person, that helps their own process. It helps them let go of the illusion. And so this is why we say this work is so much more powerful when it's highly experiential and done in community.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we wrap things up here, and I'll have just a couple quick wrap-up questions, but I want to throw on my coach's hat. I love to always give people homework. What one homework assignment would you give people today to help them on this process?
You know, my homework assignment would be to have the intention to see with the eyes of your heart and to listen with the ears of your heart. That is such a simple practice. People can do it with anyone. They can do it with a partner, with their children, with a colleague at work, with a friend. They can become heart-centered listeners, and they can learn to look with compassionate eyes. That will change relationships in the most beautiful way. We have a gentleman in the program who had been estranged from his 17-year-old son to the degree that the son was no longer living at home. And he shared with us, with tears in his eyes, that simply by listening to his son and looking at his son with the eyes of his heart, their communication and relationship has transformed, and the son is once again living at home. So this is very simple. It is very powerful.
Go ahead.
If you want to be radical, can I read you something?
Go for it.
It's out of one of our books.
While he's going for that, maybe I can ask you a question, Mary. What advice, you were mentioning parents and kids in a sense, what advice, Jessica, my wife, she always loves me to ask this question before the end, what advice would you give parents to help their kids on their path today?
To remember that their child came with their own unique spiritual curriculum. Each of us comes with our own curriculum, with the things we're here to learn, with the gifts that we're here to share. I think one of the greatest challenges, especially maybe for mothers, is they feel responsible for everything that goes on with their child. And to recognize that my job is to love my child. My job is not to fix my child, that my child has gifts, my child will experience challenges, and the greatest gift a parent can give a child is unconditional loving, is understanding, and is heart-centered listening.
Woohoo! Thank you.
So, getting back to this business of perceived unworthiness, because we've already established there can't really be any such thing if you want to buy into this context. In our first book, Loyalty to Your Soul, at the risk of...
Very good. I like it. A shameless plug.
Yes. But I was thinking about this business of what is that mechanism? And the inspiration that came through was this, and I wrote it in this book, that you may be asking God for forgiveness for all the bad things that you've done. Mm-hmm. And so this is what I heard as the response. It is not for me to forgive you for your judgments, as I am not the one who placed them out into eternity. All I do is love you, for that is my nature. And because of that, my grace is always available for you. And since love is all I know, I am not judging you. I will never make you wrong, and there is never anything you can think or do for which I will judge you. And because I love you, might I offer you some counsel? Since you are the one who issues judgments, you are the only one who can dissolve them. You do this by compassionately forgiving yourself for pretending to know my will and judging according to your limited understanding. As soon as you forgive your judgments, my grace enfolds you, and you are truly forgiven. And I love you enough to allow you to evolve into this awareness of yourself through freedom of choice. Each choice bears a consequence. Eventually, you will learn to make choices that result in loving rather than suffering. By so doing, you will come to realize your full potential and truly become one with me. And further, you have an infinite amount of time for your learning process.
I love it. On that beautiful note, where can people go to find your book, Remembering the Light Within, and your other book, and to find out more?
To order our book, they can go to Amazon.com. I think that's the easiest way for most people to gain access both to Remembering the Light Within and to Loyalty to Your Soul. And to learn more about this work, you can go to the University of Santa Monica.edu, our website. There's information there about our Loyalty to Your Soul weekend workshop in August, and also about our 10-month certificate program called Soul-Centered Living. I forgot the name. Soul-Centered Living. It's a 10-month program that is very practical. I think that's one of the things I want to underscore just in closing, Michael. This is not esoteric, ungrounded work. This is very practical. It helps people transform their consciousness and transform their lives.
Here's the irony. The more that you begin living a soul-centered life, the more your existence on the goal line improves, because you become more effective at everything that you do, because you're not cluttered up with judgments and wrong-making, and you become a very cooperative, accepting person who is very willing to accept feedback of a constructive nature and go with it, because you start running your life more in what we call a spiritual scientist, and you look for how things work and you go in that direction. That's the irony.
Tinkering. I love it. And it makes me think of, if you want to find the right person in your life, stop looking for them. Look inward instead.
That's right.
Exactly right, Michael.
Two last things. First off, what brings you both the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
I'll tell you, being in the classroom with the students is just the greatest joy. We have such amazing experiences. The energy field is extraordinary. And to witness people really waking up and letting go of things that have been in the way for them is just the greatest joy. To be well used by Spirit in that way.
I would say the same. Nothing brings me more joy than to be sitting in the classroom and watching someone go into a depth of experience in their heart such that everybody else in the room is reaching for the tissue box because the tears are just streaming forward. That's when we know it's really happening.
Beautiful. And any last words of wisdom you both want to share?
Come on along. It's a great ride.
Love is who you are, and loving is the way. It's, life is really very simple once you begin to realize that, and that you are uniquely gifted to share something of meaning and value that will not only benefit others, but through which you can experience a sense that your life matters and you do make a difference. It's so important. People need to know that their lives count for something.
And they do.
Thank you. That is, like, plain and simple, the most important thing. Thank you both for being on the show. Thank you so much. Thank you also for allowing us. We shuffled around in the schedule because our little kitty Lumiere was sick when we were originally going to have you on. And I was thinking about Lumiere. I had just read about your beautiful self-appreciation practice, and you were talking about your darling Isabella the fluffy cat as
She's
our
right
kitty.
here somewhere.
Yes. Well, we have two cats, our darling little Isabella and our beloved Teresa, and they just are the presence of love in our lives. So we completely understood about your little cat and your need to attend to that creature. And of course, we have a soft place in our heart for animals and their well-being.
I love that name, Lumiere.
I do too.
Thank you. We met him at a meditation center on Maui. He was a feral cat who came out of the woods, so to speak, and started crying for us, and he was our light.
Wow. Well, he knew his owners. Yeah, he found you. How beautiful.
Yeah, and he is here, as are all cats. But if you rescue a feral cat, cats have such a loving, gentle energy, but they're so sensitive to energy.
Yes.
They teach you really have to look inward, because what you broadcast to the world, your cat will pick up on instantly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Our second cat came to live with us inside after a coyote attack. This little cat had been living outside.
Wow.
We'd been feeding her. We had a little house for her up in the rafters of our patio to help keep her safe. And it was really extraordinary the way she came to be an inside kitty. And she is, as you say, very, very sensitive to energy.
So it teaches me. I know I'm getting better. I'm a work in progress with my energy. But with the kitties, they won't let you get away with an energy leak or anything of the sort. They're right on you.
Instant feedback.
Yep. So thank you both so much again. Thank you for the work you're doing in the world. Thank you for helping everybody to shine bright. So for
Thank you, Michael, and bless you for doing this show. It's a wonderful, wonderful gift to so many.
Amen to that.
Woohoo! Thank you both so much. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get remembering the light within, and begin following your own soul-centered living, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you guys so much.
Well, it was really fun.
Very delightful to meet you, Michael. An enjoyable conversation. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!